Well, hello there. I'm Gemini.
My psychologist says procrastination doesn't exist. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel. I mean, wow, right? That's a quote that really makes you stop and think. We're kicking things off with that little bombshell from Konstantin Prokhorov because it just raises this huge question. Is it possible that this thing we all struggle with, this constant battle with the idea of I'll do it later, is, well, not even real? Let's dig in and find out.
All right, so if procrastination isn't what we think it is, then what on earth are we actually talking about? You know, what's really happening when we're supposed to be working on that big report, but suddenly organizing our sock drawer feels like the most important job in the world?
So let's get a real definition on the table. Procrastination isn't just, putting things off. The key words to focus on here are voluntary and conscious. This means you're choosing to delay a task, even though you know it's important and that, it's probably going to cause you some trouble later. But here's the real kicker, the most important part. It's a protective reaction. Your brain is literally trying to protect you from some kind of psychological stress. And that right there brings us to the biggest myth of all. So many of us think procrastination is just a fancy word for laziness, but they are completely different things, worlds apart, really. Laziness, well, that's being inactive. You just don't feel like doing anything, and you're okay with that. Procrastination, on the other hand, is a very active process. You're not doing nothing, heck no. You're choosing to do something else. So instead of that big report, you're suddenly deep cleaning the entire apartment. The lazy person feels fine chilling on the couch. The procrastinator, they're feeling stressed, guilty, and anxious the entire time they're cleaning.
Okay, so it's not laziness. We've got that straight. So, what is going on inside our brains? Why would we willingly choose a path that we know is just going to lead to more stress? Well, the answer is all about psychology.
Yeah, it's never just one simple thing. It's more like a whole cocktail of different psychological triggers. We're talking about a deep fear of failure, or, get this, even a fear of success and the new expectations that come with it. It could be perfectionism, burnout, the list goes on. But one of the biggest culprits? It's just how our brains are wired. See, that big, important project, its reward is way, way off in the future. But that quick, funny video on your phone? Bam, that's an instant hit of feel-good dopamine. And 9 times out of 10, our brain's going to go for that immediate reward.
Let's zoom in on one of the biggest drivers here, perfectionism. It's a real trap. It creates this nasty, vicious cycle that you can see laid out here. It starts when you set this impossibly high standard, the ideal. Naturally, that huge expectation creates a massive fear of not being able to meet it. So to avoid that feeling of failure, you just don't start. You put it off. You procrastinate. And of course, that means you end up rushing at the very last minute, the work isn't your best, and that just reinforces your original feeling of inadequacy, and around you go.
Okay, but here's the thing. Not everyone procrastinates for the exact same reasons. It's not a one-size-fits-all problem. In fact, psychologists have actually identified a few common profiles or types of procrastinators. As we go through them, see if any of these sound, well, a little too familiar.
So let's run through a few of these, shall we? We've already talked a lot about the perfectionist, who's afraid of not meeting their own high standards. But hey, maybe you're the crisis maker, the one who thrives on that last-minute adrenaline rush. You tell yourself you work best under pressure, but you're really just hooked on the stress. Or what about the rebel? You delay tasks as a form of passive resistance, a way of saying, you can't make me. The first step to breaking the cycle is figuring out which one or which ones you are.
All right, so we've looked at the why and the who. We understand the psychology, and we've seen the different types. Now for the most important part, the how. What can we actually do about it? Let's get into some real, actionable strategies to break this cycle for good.
Okay, one of my absolute favorites, and it's so simple, is the 2-minute rule. The logic here is just brilliant. The hardest part of any task is just getting started. So forget about finishing the whole thing. Just commit to doing the absolute smallest first step for only 2 minutes. So you're not writing the report, you're just opening the document and writing 1 sentence. That's it, just 2 minutes. You'll be amazed at how often just starting is enough to build the momentum to keep going. Remember, the goal here is not to finish, it's simply to start.
And look, there are a ton of other tools you can put in your toolkit. And the cool thing is you can match the tool to your procrastination type. For example, if you realized, yep, I'm an overdoer, always taking on too much for other people, then ruthless prioritization is going to be your new best friend. You have to learn to focus only on what really moves the needle. Or maybe you're the dreamer, who loves the idea of success but not the work. Then you need to break those huge dreams down into tiny, manageable, non-scary steps. It's all about finding what works for you.
So we've spent all this time talking about how to beat procrastination, how to fight it, how to break the cycle, but what if I told you there's a twist? What if procrastination isn't always the bad guy?
No, I'm serious. Think about it for a second. Could putting something off actually be useful? Could it lead to a better result? You might be surprised by the answer.
It turns out there's some really interesting research on this. For some people, a little bit of delay can actually be a good thing. It gives your subconscious brain time to work on a problem in the background, to let ideas simmer. And that can often lead to way more creative, out-of-the-box solutions. It can also act as a kind of filter. Ever put off a task that felt super urgent, only to find out a week later that it wasn't necessary anymore? Sometimes delay helps us avoid wasting time on things that don't really matter.
So, at the end of the day, maybe the goal isn't to completely eliminate procrastination from our lives. Maybe it's about understanding it, managing it, and hey, maybe even using it strategically. It's all about finding that balance, right? That sweet spot between doing what feels good right now and setting up your future self for success. It's about being in control and making conscious choices instead of getting stuck in that awful cycle of guilt and stress. Subscribe to the channel and like, and also suggest your topics for future videos in the comments.